Alex, we've been talking a lot about objections or handling the no, and just one thing just to touch on is our reaction. So you can be going through a proposal, and then at the end of it, you get a no. Talk to us about your experience about how people react, and also why they react that way.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it, Gareth? So if we are well prepared, we're much less likely to be surprised by a no, because we'll have thought it through and we'll have a strategy to handle it. That's fine, but it's not a perfect world, and that means that at times we're going to get a no that we didn't see coming. Now, the challenge with that is our brain is unable to differentiate between that moment of stress and the primal response of stress that it might have had back in cave person days when it was being chased down by a saber-toothed tiger. So we have that famous fight or flight or freeze response that is triggered by our amygdala in our brain, and our primal brain responds in a way which makes us fight, or freeze. And the thing that we so often do when we're in that professional environment is actually go to defend the mode and push back. And that, of course, is probably the worst thing you can do.
It's interesting, isn't it? I suppose that the ancient part of the brain was really useful when you're being hunted. Well, your customer isn't hunting you, so with that fight, flight, and freeze reaction, how does that show up in terms of how people react to a potential objection?
Well, as I said, first of all, very often the first reaction is defense, and then very often attack and justification. And in effect, all you're doing is you're digging your hole deeper. Because actually behind that, let's call it an attack, behind that attack, there's very often a very good reason for it, particularly through the customer's eyes.
And I guess we can talk about that another time, about how we can handle that. But I'm just wondering, how do we be aware of how we do react emotionally when we get that no, and what are some of the tips to overcome it?
So the key thing is it's about driving your self-awareness, so being aware of how you are coming across, and the overcoming thing is an interesting thing. That to be able to take the right decision in that moment, the thing that you need is space and time. The challenge is your fight, flight, freeze response negates that because it's an instant thing. So there's lots of tips and techniques around handling objections, as most people watching this video will have heard of in the past. The most significant thing and the most important thing you can do right at the start is stop, pause, breathe, slow things down, so that whatever your reaction becomes a response, and a response being something that is somewhat more considered. And you're much more likely to have a constructive response if you do that. Real simple thing: stop, pause, breathe, slow things down, and then your response is much more considered.